Welcome to Forum 360 with its global outlook and local view. I'm Ardith Keck, your host. We all get older. Our bodies change. How should we prepare to get older? What should we do to make getting older a happy experience? How does one find meaning in the midst of aging? There is a specialty called gerontology, which deals with older adults and aging. With me are two gerontologists, Barb Palmisano, BFN, MA, recently retired from Northeastern Ohio Medical University as Assistant Professor, Department of Family and Community Medicine, and Director of the Office of Geriatrics. And Margaret Sanders, MA, LSW, Associate Professor, Family and Community Medicine, and Associate Director of the Office of Geriatrics at NeoMed, Northeastern Ohio Medical University. Okay, Barb.
Yes.
How does one confront the reality of aging?
Well, first off, Ardith, I'd like to stress that aging is not a disease in itself. Aging is a normal, healthy part of the lifespan. And so we need to look at aging as a time of growth, a time of continued development. We used to think that you get to middle age and then it's more the same. Until you kind of fall off the hill, you're over the hill, and that's it. But that's not true. Aging is a developmental change where we can still grow, we can still learn, we can still very much put our life, we can look retrospectively at our life and get a new, fresh perspective. We can kind of redefine our story, and a lot of us do that. Redefine as we'd like to see it, but resolve perhaps goals that were unmet or things that we wanted to accomplish, celebrate those accomplishments, and look at what we want to do with this next 20 years of our life, because most of us, if we reach the age 65, we have 20 more years. And people don't realize that we have a lot of time to still do things and have adventures and develop.
It sounds wonderful. You make it sound wonderful. Margie,
yes.
What ages are considered aging?
Well, it depends on the organization that you're asking. For some it's 60, for most it's 65 is considered older adults. But there's levels of aging. There's the young old, who are that 65 group, and up to about 85. 85 and older are considered the old.
I have 2 more years to go.
However, it's not based on chronological age as well. I mean, that's sort of a general guide, but it is how you feel, how active you are.
Hopefully we can stay active.
Yeah.
Is there a normal denial of aging?
Oh, it's really rampant in our society. Everything, and Margie can attest to this, is anti-aging. You really look now, you open your eyes when you go to the stores, even on ads and TV, it's all anti-aging. And we age every day. I have a grandson who just turned 13 who was so happy to age, to be a teenager, and looking forward to being 16 and 21. So yes, our society takes a dim view of older age in the later years. And that's something that we work very hard to dispel. Yeah. The myths of aging.
At my 50-year class reunion, I had a longtime girlfriend who said, "Do you notice my wrinkles? I honor each and every one of them." So there are people who are proud of that process.
Okay.
Yeah.
We should be proud.
That's right.
Yeah.
How hard is it to overcome the natural denial of changes as we age?
Well, I don't know. I think there's a healthy resolve there. We can't really deny the changes. We can work very hard to optimize our function. Exercise is one of the biggest and best things we can do, plus good nutrition. And so we don't want to deny the changes, but what we want to do is maximize our function, maximize our quality of life, maximize what we do and what we see every day in terms of our being and just enjoying the joy of life. And we also want to stay healthy and do the best things we can so that we minimize our health risks, which are real. I mean, we have to face those. We do, in a realistic fashion.
Also, spiritual growth, the knowledge that you're making legacy, making memories with loved ones, those are all so important as we grow older.
Are there physical changes that need to be made to age?
Oh, sure. We need to be more cautious. One, like I said, we need to stay fit. We need to exercise so that we can maintain not only strength but balance. Falling is one of the greatest risks of aging. Our muscles do get weakened, and our bodies are less resilient to disease and infections. We saw this during COVID. Sadly enough, it hit the older adult population very hard. So we do have to take extra precautions. We do have to take extra care to go to the doctor, listen, make interventions that keep us as healthy as we can. And a lot of this we're learning now starts in middle age. It's if you take care of yourself in middle age, that helps defray some of the changes of aging. But they're still real. You're still going to lose muscle mass. You're still going to change. Your senses are going to dull. So we compensate. We learn to compensate.
But we do have some control over that by doing the things that we need to do to stay healthy. So that, those kinds of things are important for us to take. I think that's, as we age, I think people sometimes believe that they've lost control of their lives a little bit.
And they give up.
Yes,
Yeah.
and this is something that they can actually do to remain autonomous and remain in charge of their lives.
So staying engaged with people, if you have diminished hearings, you want to get a hearing aid, for instance, because you want to stay, you want to be able to participate in those conversations. You don't want to be left out. Or if you can't see, I can't do anything without my glasses now. So I hang them around my neck when I'm in the house or working or whatever, so that I always have them accessible, because I still want to read. I still want to be able to do things. So there's ways to compensate in a very positive way the changes that most of us do experience, because age is change. It is adjusting and adapting to change.
And somebody who's just recently retired as a geriatric specialist would see some of those things, I would imagine.
Well, I have to say, this is kind of a joke between us. I kind of failed I've been in geriatrics my whole life, and I kind of failed my first attempt at retirement, as much as we teach it and preach it, because work and family kind of always defined my life, and I had all these lofty ideas. But I have a very good friend who said to me, take a year and try on different things. Not everyone, there's no, I'm not going to go to a bingo parlor or certain things, but everyone's different. It's finding what is meaningful to you. And so I had to really try that. I did different volunteer things and joined different organizations and did different things to try to see what meant something to me, what fueled me. And so I had to try it on for a while. And I had the good fortune also of going back part-time so that I could readjust and kind of ease into it a little bit more. So full disclosure, I'm sorry.
And I was lucky enough to have her come back part-time to help me out, because really needed her help. So it was wonderful.
Yes, right. Is there an agency or a person who can help make informed decisions about living conditions, for instance, or whatever?
Well, there are area agencies on aging are wonderful resources for individuals in the community. in our area, Direction Home is a wonderful resource for finding out what you may need, the needs of a loved one that you see maybe having some difficulty.
They'll
Yeah.
make a phone call. They'll do a free assessment over the phone, and then determine if they can help you. Then they'll come out and make a visit too, if they feel that's necessary. But they do case management, and they will tell you what services you're eligible for, and can help you with that. They're a
And
wonderful,
they're not
wonderful
selling
resource.
anything. So
Correct.
They are a
Yeah.
nonprofit. Yes, they're funded by the Older Americans Act, and they really, what their goal is to keep everyone in their home or the place where they want to be, in an environment at the highest level of function that they possibly can.
what are the factors to be considered before moving into a retirement facility?
Well, there are a number of different kinds of retirement facilities. So there are nursing homes, there are assisted livings, and there are retirement communities, which are for people who truly are functioning and active and really just want a situation where they can age in place and have services available when they need them. To decide to be in a retirement community, you probably need to be pretty active, and then the others are really determined by your health needs more than anything.
And also safety, how safe a person, if they are in their own home and they're thinking of a move to whatever level of care, like Margie said, there's different levels of care. How safe are they in their home? Can you put supports in to shore up the safety and assure that the person is functioning as well as they can? Or are they a fall risk? Are they a risk because mentally they can't care for themselves? So that really determines both mental and physical function. But trying to keep a person, that's why the area agency, ours is called Direction Home. Their goal is to try to keep people in their home or home of choice, because the retirement community, my mom, her retirement community was her home. That became her home. And when her desire was to stay in her apartment, and fortunately in retirement I was able to care for her, and we were able to do that. But that was her new definition of home. And she needed the socialization because she was isolated and her home was too much.
And the retirement communities have lots of activities.
Indeed.
They're
and
fun.
transportation, because people sometimes can no longer drive.
Well, and they also offer the transportation because you may be going to the art museum, which is difficult to find parking, and so you have a group that you're going with and can be dropped off at the door. It's wonderful.
Yeah, they do provide a lot of socialization and a lot of support services, having meals together, for instance, rather than eating by yourself, and good quality meals. That makes such a difference.
True.
And again, we saw that during COVID, what isolation does to the individuals, particularly older individuals, but everybody across the lifespan. It was really so detrimental.
Let's talk more about COVID in just a minute. But with me are Barb Palmisano, who is recently retired from Northeastern Ohio University's College of Medicine, and Margaret Sanders, who is Associate Professor, Family and Community Medicine, and Associate Director of Geriatrics at NAOMED, Northeastern Ohio University's Medical University, I guess it is now.
Yes.
And COVID obviously had detrimental effect on most of us, but I can imagine that the elderly, the aging person, it was worse.
Yes.
The social isolation was terrible. The people who got COVID more severe because their physical resilience when we're older is not as good, so it certainly was more susceptible. We see people dying alone without families. We saw people getting confused and disoriented because they lacked the socialization and the routines, and depression was rampant. Yes, it was
And-
very detrimental.
And people who lived in long-term care, unfortunately, COVID ran rampant in a number of nursing homes. And so I have a very good friend who lives in Florida, whose mother is in Ohio, and she had been in a nursing home and contracted COVID and was in the hospital and dying. And he couldn't come to see
Couldn't
her.
visit.
No. And we had long conversations about what he could do. And I suggested FaceTime, ask the nurse to FaceTime. And at this point, she was non-responsive. But it was so wonderful because I said, talk to her. He said, well, she doesn't remember anything anyhow, but she's not responding. I said, talk about wonderful childhood memories with her. She's there. She's just not speaking to you right now. And he did. And the nurse said she started kicking her legs when he talked about something. And I also asked that he talk about the 4 things Ira Byock recommends to say to someone who's dying, which is, please forgive me, I forgive you, I love you, and thank you. And he did that, and tears streamed down his mom's face.
Really?
And it was
She
later
heard
that
every word.
she heard every word. So yeah, and
That was so hard when
Oh.
families weren't allowed to be with
Yes.
their loved ones.
yeah.
We made a lot of parking lot visits to my mom. They had a lot of drive-by. They even had some of the bands and things drive by and ask the residents to come to their windows so that they could hear the music. And people were doing all kinds of creative things to try to keep some level of contact. But it was still really hard on both family and
It was.
older adults.
It was.
Is immediate family usually the one who rescues the aging person if they need help?
Yes.
Immediate
Sibling
family.
Caregiving is, and
Yes.
it's usually the daughters
daughters.
or daughter-in-laws. However, we're seeing more men caregivers, but entire families can take on different roles. My mother-in-law is 101, and I always say we have a village of people who take care of her. There's a lot of people who do certain roles, if it's finances or if it's errand running, if it's, regular care, health, overseeing the health. But it is typically, when it is the hands-on caregiving, it's typically the daughter or daughter-in-laws.
Is there funding available nationally for geriatric patients for aging?
Very little. In terms of long-term care, in terms of caregiving, most of it is private pay, which is very difficult on most
very
families.
expensive.
It's very
Indeed.
expensive. It's hard to find people. Unfortunately, industry-wide, we don't have a lot of paid caregivers available in the marketplace, so it's very hard to find people. And so it does fall on the family, mostly, unless you're very low income. And then there are programs to help the very low income. But if you have a moderate to even low income, but not within the really the poverty level, a lot of it is support. We need a lot of progress in that area. We need to help families help care for their loved ones.
Is financial planning one of the things that you recommend?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And
Crucial.
Again,
It
I
is.
mentioned up front that people don't realize that after they retire or when they consider they're older, they may have 20 more years. And at the end, of course, their health care is the most expensive because they need more health care. They need more support services. And yes, financial planning is essential for those that can, can do it.
I had a friend in her 90s who said, I just didn't think I'd last this long.
Yeah, yeah. You have to plan on that. Yep.
Yeah. And
Same.
her funds were running out, so. You mentioned that workforce is difficult. So if you've got a parent, for instance, who wants to stay in their home, you try to hire somebody?
Well, and that has become quite a difficult chore. Home health care workers are not, they're just not available to people. And they are very underpaid, doing some really heavy lifting. You know, that they're doing a lot of the work that others may not want to do, bathing, doing personal care for individuals. And I think there are a couple of things that we need to do as a society. We need to certainly value their work more, and they need better financial compensation. You know, they are natural caregivers, that you don't get into that kind of work unless you're good and care about people, but they have to be compensated better. We do have, at Neomed, we have a geriatric workforce enhancement program that's funded by HRSA, the Human Services and Resources, and it's called a geriatric workforce enhancement program. There's at least one in every state in the country. And what we're doing is trying to encourage people to think about geriatric care.
Okay. I want to get into the medical school and geriatrics in a minute, but what are some of the things you've mentioned? Exercise. You mentioned socialization. I think you may have mentioned diet too.
Nutrition is very important. Nutrition and hydration. Drinking water, you know, keeping well hydrated, because older adults are particularly susceptible to becoming dehydrated. And sometimes have a diminished appetite, so it's important what they do eat is healthy. And
there are things to help you, like a geriatric mix that's kind of like a milkshake.
Well, there can be supplements, yes. We use supplements quite a bit for people who it's difficult for them to get good meals, or they just don't feel like eating, so we do use supplements quite a bit.
Although they can't depend on supplements, because there are people who say, oh, I took my whatever it is, and so I'm not really very hungry. So
well, a supplement is a supplement to a meal, not a meal.
Yes,
That's exactly right.
It's
not a meal.
Consider it, well, that was my meal.
Right. Okay. At the medical school, do you teach students about geriatrics?
Oh, yes.
In all 4 years, they get exposed to geriatric education.
And one of the things that Margie and I always work so hard at, too, is really showing students what a wonderful field geriatrics is to go into. As a specialty or a part of primary care, or really a part of any specialty, really, except for pediatrics. And we always say, even in pediatrics, you're going to be seeing grandparents are going to be taking the kids. So even in pediatrics, you're going to be dealing with older adults. But it is such a challenge, and older adults are so appreciative of good quality care and someone who really listens and really knows that whatever pill is prescribed may have detrimental effects, or what are the benefits versus the problems. Will it cause a fall? Will it keep them up at night? Will that increase urination? So again, that's a problem with sleeping. So it's looking at the whole person. We really emphasize holistic care, and we love geriatrics because it's a team approach. It's not just the physician, it is the physician and the nurse and the social worker and the therapist, the physical and occupational and speech therapy. It truly is a team.
And there are very few physicians who treat older people specifically.
Yes, but we encourage, there are national programs that help students, give them the opportunities to work with geriatric patients. We also work with our geriatricians in the area to give students opportunities, but also focus on healthy aging. When medical students get to the hospital is when they generally see their older patients. And those are usually the most frail and the sickest. And so they can get a rather negative view of what being a geriatrician is all about.
And those people are not representative.
Correct.
That's very
That
true.
is exactly correct. So we try to give them opportunities to interact with active, vibrant, older adults.
Do most doctors learn about geriatrics? Is this an unusual thing?
Well, I think at Neomed we're a little ahead of the curve.
I think so, too.
But most programs do, because you cannot treat a 85-year-old frail woman the same as you would treat a robust 50-year-old man. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So medicine, it is so important in medicine to see the differences and consider the changing, the metabolic, the physiologic, and the functional changes of aging when you're in practice. So a lot of the programs are adapting that more, but of course, they can do more.
Yes.
We always feel
Yes.
we're always trying to promote, and that's why there's funding and things going into the medical schools and that to train physicians, and we said nurses, social workers, the whole team, the therapists.
Thank you for coming to discuss aging gracefully, Barb and Margie. We are all getting older, and these tips are very helpful. This is Ardith Keck for Forum 360 with its global outlook and local view.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.